Travis just said, yeah, it is my festival. So, for him to say basically he didn't have a duty of care to his fans definitely is not something I wish I was hearing right now. Hey guys, I'm top music attorney, Miss Krystle, and we're back with another update on the Travis Scott Astroworld Festival Tragedy. Now, today we got a full-length interview that Travis Scott did with Charlamagne Tha God. And, when I say full length, this is a 50-minute interview, and I'm going to go through the whole thing and give you some legal analysis because I'm curious what Travis Scott has to say. We've been covering this tragedy since it happened on this channel. We have a full playlist with all the videos where we have covered things like the complaint, the defendants, what's being said, looking at footage from this event. And so finally, we're actually going to hear from Travis Scott's own mouth, and he's going to be answering some of the hard questions that we've been wondering about. Does he feel responsibility? Is he going to take any kind of responsibility? And what's his position on basically the next steps from here? So with that being said, let's get into it.
Travis Scott, what's up, brother?
What it do?
How you feeling?
I've been on about like different type of like emotions, emotional roller coaster. I mean, it gets so hard because, I always felt like connected with my fans. Mm-hmm. And, I went through something, and I feel like fans went through something and people's parents went through something. And it's, it really, it hurts. It hurts the community, it hurts a city. And it's just been a lot of thoughts, a lot of feelings, a lot of grieving. And just, trying to wrap my head around it, Mm-hmm. I really wanted to be there. And just, wish you could just kind of like hold everyone, kind of just heal them, talk to them, have conversations. It really just hurts, man.
Well, what's your intention with this conversation? Like what do you hope to get out of this, or what do you hope to get out?
I don't personally have an intention. I just feel like something happened, and I feel like it's just, I needed just a way to kind of like communicate, Mm-hmm.
I think that we have to kind of analyze what he says in this interview from the standpoint of there's no way he hasn't talked to his attorney prior to doing this interview. There's no way that these questions weren't cleared ahead of time. And, more than likely, he probably talked to his attorney in regards to these questions and how to answer ahead of time. And I'm not even saying that that's a bad thing. I'm not saying that, they're in a shady kind of way scripting how he's going to say these things. But what I am saying is that if he is smart with the fact that there is a $10 billion lawsuit against him, there's a $2 billion lawsuit, there's a $750 million lawsuit, all of these lawsuits, all of these plaintiffs that are coming after him individually, as well as his label, for him to go and say anything publicly, anything that he says can be used against him in these cases. And so, he is a businessman. I'm sure he had these conversations. And so what I'm going to be looking at is, do I feel that he's kind of speaking from the heart? And this is something where he's trying to connect with his fans and those, the families of those whose lives were lost? Or is some of this going to be filtered now because he's basically trying to say something without incriminating himself?
One, the families are grieving, it's fans that experienced something, it's fans that came to a show. And I feel like I just have like I've always been that person to always see things through. Mm-hmm. With the people that shared experiences with me. And it just, things happen, and I just kind of, it's been such a time, and I've just been trying to just really figure things out,
Mm-hmm. I know you, I'm sure you experienced any remorse, but was there any hesitation to have this conversation because of the litigation you may be facing?
Well, I mean...
Right. And that goes to basically the point that I just made. Is this part of kind of the PR move of you need to say something, right? Because if you say absolutely nothing, then the media is going to control the narrative and they're going to control what it means that you're staying quiet and you're staying hidden. Now, is the fact that he's coming and saying something going to ultimately backfire? I guess we'll see as the interview goes on.
Yeah, of course you got people that's just like, oh, what? Like, you know, but it's not about that. You know, it's, you know, you're an artist, you, whoever people think you are, but at the end of the day, you're a human being, you know, and you have emotions. You want to communicate them emotions, you know, and trying to find the best way to communicate, you know, how you just feeling, you know.
How have you been coping with the aftermath of everything? Just emotionally, just you as a human.
I've been just in a room for a while, you know, a lot of thoughts, and luckily, you know, you have people around that you can kind of bounce ideas, but it's just been, you know, I've been doing this for such a long time, and, you know, nothing like this ever happened, you know, so it just kind of like, you just kind of figuring out.
Okay, so when he says nothing like this ever happened, I'm just wondering what exactly is he saying? There's a lot of different things that happen. We focus a lot on the fact that there was actually fatalities at this event. People's lives were lost. Children died at this event. Okay, maybe that hasn't happened, but we know that fans have been harmed even at the direction of him telling the fans to rush the stage and let's rage, and telling fans to push each other. And, you know, we've talked about this at length on this channel. So what exactly is new? Is it just the fatality part?
And at the end of the day, like, these fans are your family, so you just feel like you lost something, and you just, like, you do these shows, honestly, to, you know, for people to have the best experience, you know, and just to think that something like this happened, you're just trying to figure out, you know, just wrap everything around. And so even just for the first couple weeks, you know, it was just me sitting down, but I had to really channel these emotions to just remember, like, you know, if no one's gonna be a voice for these people, I gotta, like, kind of step up and kind of, like, be a voice to just figure out that, you know, this doesn't happen in the future, just shows, period. You know what I'm saying? Or figure out the bottom solution of what's going on and just try to ensure people, you know, safety and what they're doing, you know.
Yeah, you said you was in the room, but then people saw you at the golf course.
Yeah,
with Michael Jordan and Mark Wahlberg. What was that?
It was just Thanksgiving. You know, and they were there. You know, it's just good people to have around in the community. And
yeah, so what he's touching on is just that, you know, a couple pictures surfaced a few weeks ago, and we were seeing that, you know, he's golfing, and he just looks like, you know, how upset is he really if he's out golfing, or at least that was what, you know, was being speculated.
You know, that was just more like a personal time, just trying to get around. I think like some fan came and asked for a photo, but yeah.
Now, let's talk about that night, man. When did you find out things got as bad as they did? Now, that's the question everybody wants to know.
Yeah, it wasn't really until like minutes until like the press conference until I figured out exactly what happened. You know, even after the show, you know, you just kind of hearing things, but you don't know. I didn't know the exact details until, you know, minutes before the press conference. And even at that moment, you kind of just like, wait, you know, what? Like, you know, you just went through something, and it's just like, wait, what? You know.
So we've talked about this, and we've just said, you know, how is it possible if his attorney is reporting basically he didn't know until the next morning? He's saying, I didn't know until basically right before the actual press conference where they're addressing this. And even for us, you know, we were saying we saw this in the middle of the night, right? And so if he's up and he's partying after this festival, how is it that not just Travis Scott, but also his entire team, or let's say even fans in the you know, the club that they went to, or anything, or Dave & Buster's, I should say, no one knew, no one got a report that there had been a fatality, because we know there were fatalities starting in the middle of the show, and the show in fact went for 40 more minutes while people were actually dying. So you're saying even during the show, after the show, later when you're partying, you still didn't know? I mean, but that's what he's saying. So
you didn't know people that actually passed away and stuff?
Nah.
Wow.
Until minutes before, you know, which is, yeah, you know, and the thing is, like, you know, people pass out, you know, people, you know, things happen at concerts, but something like that, it's just like.
And look, you know, I want to be fair about this, so let's take him at face value. He didn't know. He didn't know until much later. Well, he knew people were passing out, right? We have video where we see people, getting pulled off, going off in ambulances. He knew things were obviously happening. So I'm just wondering, so you didn't check in? You didn't ask anyone on your team, hey, was all my fans okay? Because he started this by saying, look, I'm going based on what he is saying. I want to be there for my fans. I want to hug them. I want to, all of that. Okay. Did you check in on your fans? And if so, everyone said everything was okay?
Yeah, people said they collectively heard folks screaming help every time you stopped the song to get your attention. Did you hear any of those screams?
Nah, man. And it's so crazy because I'm that artist too. Like, anytime you can hear something like that, you want to stop the show. You want to make sure, fans get the proper attention they need, And anytime I could see anything like that, I did, I stopped it like a couple times to just make sure everybody was okay. And I just really just go off the, the fans' energy as a collective, call and response. And I just didn't hear that. I got music, I got my in-ears, but I just didn't hear that,
Break that down a little more. Like nobody knows what it's like being on stage except for other artists. So speak to us from that perspective of what you can see and hear. It was like, what, 50,000 people?
Yeah, I mean, you got like a venue, filled with like 50,000 people. But it's like a sea. You got lights, you got sound, you got pyro, you got your in-ears, you got your sound, got your mic, got the music, you got band, there's all type of, stuff going on.
So it's hard to tell excitement from danger, so to speak?
Yeah, of course. Everything kind of just sounds the same. And at the end of the day, you just hear music, and when you do, you just hear amongst of things, But when you're in a show, you just enter the show, and anytime you can feel anything close to you, you try to definitely get to that.
So this question is getting to what did you know at that time? So from an audible standpoint, what could you hear? And he's saying, well, I couldn't really make out whether they're cheering or crying for help. I have a hard time believing that from some of the footage that I've seen, but let's say he couldn't hear and he couldn't understand what was being said or yelled to the stage in between songs. Well, what can you see? And we have footage from his standpoint on the stage, and so we know what he saw in multiple instances. And in one instance where we see an actual ambulance coming through the audience, he had paused the show very briefly, but he didn't say, hey guys, let's pick each other up off the ground. Hey, let's make sure the ambulance can get through. Hey, let's make sure. He didn't say anything like that. He paused for a little while, and then he said, basically, let's rage.
It's an ambulance in the crowd. Whoa, whoa, whoa. What the fuck is that? If everybody good, put a middle finger up in the sky. Okay, where my guy, man? Come on. Yeah, all that. 2 hands to the sky. 2 hands to the sky.
2 hands up, y'all, 2 hands up.
Y'all know what y'all came to do. Chase me, let's go. Whoa. I wanna make this motherfucking ground shake, goddammit.
Whoa.
Here we go.
So as an artist, how much can you actually, I guess, help in that position?
You can only help what you can see, you know what I mean? And then, whatever you're told, you know what I'm saying? Whenever somebody tell you to stop, you just stop.
Wasn't that night, huh? Raging has been a part of the culture, of your shows. You didn't on this night, but in the past, you've encouraged, I guess, the kind of energy that could have led to something like this happening. Do you think that contributed to the energy of this night?
Yeah, nah, I think, it's something I've been working on, for a while, of just creating these experiences and trying to show the experiences happening in a safe environment. Us as artists, we trust, professionals to make sure that, things happen and people leave, safely, you know what I'm saying? And this night was just like a regular show, it felt like to me.
Okay, so if this is one of his regular shows, right, and I think the question was pretty good of just saying, look, your typical show is raging and the kids are going crazy. And in fact, the year prior, not in 2020, but the year in 2019 for Astroworld, the same kind of thing happened as far as kids who had gotten to the venue early. They're breaking through the gates, right? That happened again this year. And we have footage where we see before anything had even happened, before the show had even started, hours earlier in the day, these kids were breaking through, the gates to get in. And there was definitely this culture of, at best, they were incredibly rowdy. But at worst, we have these violent tendencies. And so, we've talked about this on, well, is that just because that's kind of what you expect at one of these shows? And so that's what you get. So he's saying, no, that's not, how things go. But that's not really the culture of his shows. He's always the one that says, rush the stage. And he's telling, fans to get into fights. And, he definitely has a certain style to how he does his shows.
As far as like, the energy, people, it didn't feel like it was like, people didn't show up there to just be harmful.
Mm-hmm.
People just, I think, showed up to have a good time, and then, something unfortunate happened. And I think we really just got to figure out, what that was,
Does raging make it harder to identify when something is going wrong in the crowd?
Well, I think, raging is just they have a textbook, definition, but, in concerts, we've grown it to be just an experience of having fun. It's not about just, harm. Mm-hmm. It's not about that. It's about just letting go and having fun, help others, love each other. It's not about just, harm. Mm-hmm. That's not what it's all about. The show isn't just rambunctious for an hour. Mm-hmm. That's not what it is.
Oh, trust me, I grew up on crunk.
Yeah.
So, I understand, you don't want it to get too out of hand.
Yeah, but the energy is high,
Mm-hmm.
and, that's why you want to just make sure that, people are surrounded, to make sure that people are just having the best experience,
Yeah, and going back to what I said, what we didn't see during his pauses in the show is, hey guys, let's make sure we're helping each other. Hey, let's make sure we get everyone off the floor. And we've seen other artists that will do that, and they pause the show and they make sure that everyone actually is okay, rather than this kind of, I stopped the show and I'm waiting to hear something. Well, by his own statement, he couldn't hear anything, right? He couldn't make out one way or another what it was that he was hearing. So to the extent that he's trying to say, maybe there's kind of this violent piece of raging, that's really not what it's supposed to be about. I still am not really hearing this sentiment of, I want to keep my fans safe.
You know what I'm saying? I can't say the energy is high, but you make sure that people are there for people to have like the best experience and leave.
Yeah, you want people to have a good time. You don't want people to get hurt
at all.
Yeah.
Well, Charlamagne just said it. You don't want people to get hurt.
and God forbid, pass away. And it's typical for you to stop a show, to make sure fans in the crowd get the help, they need. There's even footage of that night of you doing that during the set. Were you unable to sense like a difference in urgency this time around?
I mean, yeah, because, you stop the show, but, if something's going to happen, if it's something detrimental, somebody's going to let you know, or, the show just stopped. And, that just wasn't the case. I just kind of stopped the show. You just ask, you have a call and response with the fans. You try to, generally get a response, but, if you don't get like a hard stop, it's just, you can't, you just go off of what's going on, which makes it so like, so crazy, cause like, if I feel like if, anyone would have known, it would have just been like, it wouldn't have got that far,
Mm-hmm. What?
Well, people did know, right? And so part of the question was, once there had already been fatalities in the midst of the show, he said, again, earlier, I had in-ears in. He's obviously communicating with his team. There are different departments at this festival. So, what he's basically saying is that no one told him anything. I was giving a call response opportunity to the crowd. The crowd didn't tell me. Well, yes, they did. They were screaming for help, but he's saying he couldn't hear them.
What headspace were you in when you posted that initial response video?
I mean, it was, I think it had to have been the night of, so I was just in a headspace of just trying to get a communication out to my fans,
Well, if it was the night of, then it wasn't the next morning when you found out. So maybe that's just, maybe I missed something there, but that doesn't seem accurate to what he said earlier in the interview.
I had little to no information, you know, so I was just trying to figure it out and just communicate to them, you know. Yeah, I was just reacting just literally just to get something to the fans, you know. It's people that showed up.
Do you regret that initial video? Do you regret reacting in that way, or not, like not having all the information before you said something?
I mean, yeah, because, you know, you just don't know what's going on, but at the end of the day, I don't, you know, I just wanted to get something out. You know, how my message came out, I can't, you know, I can only go off what I know, but my true intentions of it, you know, was really just trying to get a message across and, you know, really wanted to just touch to the fans, touch to the families, you know, that we here, we grieving, and we'll get through this, you know, through this process.
So what did you know in that first video?
I mean, at that time, I think we just knew that, you know, people pass, you know. We didn't know how, you know, that it was, you know, the news, you know, I think police came out and said something, you know, you're just going off of what you're seeing in the news, you know, you don't really know nothing. And then as the days go on, you start collecting a little bit more information.
Maybe I missed something or he's misspeaking, but you know, now he's saying the police came and talked to us and then we kind of heard it through the news. So I'm a little unclear in how he's trying to clarify when he found out and then decided to post up a video, because it seems like the timeline is changing.
They said there was like chaos and trampling being reported since the early afternoon, like hours before the show even started. Were you informed of any of that ahead of time?
Well, no, like, you know, the police, he came and to my trailer and he, you know, he congratulated me on, you know, the event and, you know, having something like this in Houston. He let me know that it was, you know, mishap at the merch booth earlier. You know, they shut it down, but they opened it back up. They seemed to got it under control. You know, he was gonna step out and just let us know if we need anything, you know, have a good show. That was it.
Yeah, and that's not exactly accurate to what we heard from the official statements. There were actually very direct express warnings from the police to Travis Scott, you know, before he started his show, and just to say there's been some incidents earlier in the day, and obviously probably includes whatever had happened at this merch booth, you know, but he's saying basically, yeah, there was a little something at the merch booth, no big deal, have a great show. And that's not what we heard.
You know, a lot of the criticism, you know, from the tragedy, they say, is in the poor planning and understaffing of the event. As an artist, do you have any involvement in any of that?
Well, I mean, we just do, as an artist, you just do the creative. And for this being my festival, you know, I got, you know, bring artists, you know, creatively produce it. And, you know, we just trust in the, you know, the professionals to kind of just make sure that, you know, people, you know, are taken care of and, you know, leaving safely. You know, I just can control what I can on the stage, and then, you know, you have the professionals control what they can in the crowd, you know. It's just hard, because as an artist, you know, you want to have like the best shows and you want to have the best experiences, and you know, you link with professionals to handle that side of it, you know, and
I have a bit of a problem with what he just said, because I feel like he is displacing so much of the blame, and not so much, all of the blame, on the professionals. Okay, I'm sorry, Travis Scott. This is your festival. You are 100% in charge of what's happening during your show while you are on stage. And so to basically say, I'm just this little artist who doesn't know any better, how can I possibly know what's happening or have any kind of responsibility? You know, when I have 17-year-old artists in my office who I represent saying things like this, they don't get a pass. But they're 17 years old or 18 years old. I'm sorry, if you are a businessman who does these multi-million-dollar deals and you have a brand that you're building and you have a massive festival that you put on to say, poor little artist me, I can't do anything, I'm relying on the professionals. You are the professional.
You know, you want to know what's going on. I think that's what we got to figure out, you know, and figure out what happened there, how it happened, you know.
You spoke on the Houston police chief. His name is Troy Finner. He came to you, and he said he voiced concerns over the crowd energy. So what did you and your team like do with that information once you got it?
Well, I think that's what the media, said, but I think
No, that's what the police chief said.
I think it read to more so that he wanted us to, he knew that our crowd was, you know, the type of crowd that comes. It comes at a heavy crowd. So to communicate with him if we were doing anything outside of the week's itinerary, you know? That week we were doing like a lot of charity stuff prior to the festival. So, you know, there's security at most of the events, but, you know, he was just letting us, you know, I guess in that statement, he was just saying if we do anything outside of what we had on our itinerary, let him know. But, you know, we didn't even get to that point.
You know, it's crazy just, you know, being a
Yeah, guys. So look, I'm not gonna harp on this too much longer, but obviously I kind of just pointed out, no, there was at least what the police chief is saying. We had a direct conversation with Travis. We said we're super concerned about the energy, and he's saying that he didn't say any of that. I have a hard time believing that.
kicking it with you for a little bit, like I can see that, you know, this is weighing real heavy on you.
Yeah.
So how much do you feel a sense of responsibility for what happened that night?
Well, you know, fans come to the show and have a good experience, you know? And I have a responsibility to figure out what happened here. I have a responsibility to figure out the solution. And, you know, and I gotta, and hopefully this takes a first step into, you know, us as artists, you know, having that more insight of what's going on, you know what I'm saying? And, you know, the professionals to kind of, you know, surround and figure out more of an intel, whether it's tech, whether it's, you know, more of a response, whether it's whatever the problem is, you know, to figure out that in the future, moving forward in concert safety, make sure it just never happen again, you know?
I mean, it should it should have never happened in the first place. Again, I'm going to get with the professionals. We're going to talk about how this will never. I'm sorry. This is your third version or iteration of this festival. You have toured all over the world. You are a professional performer and artist. And I'm having a real hard time with, you know what? We still got to figure out what happened. We know what happened. There was no crowd control. So when the crowd started to rush the stage and people are getting crushed, they couldn't control. There wasn't adequate security. There wasn't adequate medical personnel to care for everyone that had been injured. So I'm a little disappointed that right now all I'm hearing is like, this just happened 30 minutes ago. And now he's saying we got to figure it out. No, this was many weeks ago. And I'm not hearing him saying anything substantive.
Well, let's talk about those professionals. Like how much responsibility do you think like Live Nation and Score More, the promoters, have in all of this?
I mean, you know, they do their job of, you know, setting these things up. So, I mean, I think, you know, they when we dial into what, you know, specifically happened here, I feel like, you know, even they can kind of help, you know, figure out what happened in a sense. You know, but at the end of the day, I think collectively, everyone needs to just figure out the bottom line solution. But, you know, especially in concert safety, you know, definitely got to have, you know, make sure that, you know, these things are, you know, done right.
So the question pivoted to now, well, the other defendants, right? We know Apple has been named as a defendant, Live Nation. And so again, the way that Travis Scott is phrasing is that he's almost like the hero in this story. I'm going to do this investigation and make sure that we figure out what happened and what needs to be done to prevent this from happening in the future. We already know what needs to be done to prevent this. That is why Live Nation and these other festival promoters require such stringent policies be in place for all these contingencies. When things go wrong, what are you going to do to ensure crowd safety? And so we've talked about this as far as, you know, allegedly there were policies in place, but then they were not adhered to. And so that was one of the failures in all of this. So when he keeps on saying, we're going to figure out how to prevent deaths in the future, we already know. And we know that that was a massive failure with Astroworld.
You think these festivals are too big, man? 50,000 people is a lot of people for anybody to control.
Yeah, but there are festivals that are bigger, you know, way bigger. And, you know, I just think it's not about the maximum of it, I think it's about the attention to what's going on and how it's going on. And as long as that's handled, I feel like things can be, can go okay, will be okay, But if you look at it through the history of festivals, this isn't the first time happening. There's been a long history of this, So I feel like if you look at the overall, view of that.
I'm not sure if he just said there's been a long history of people dying at festivals. That's not the case. It's actually been a very long time since something like that, or to this magnitude, has happened. And again, it goes to his own point. There are festivals that are way bigger than Astroworld, and we don't have fatalities. So him saying, oh, we don't know what happened and we're gonna figure it out, is a bit of a cop-out.
And you kind of like dial in, okay, what could we do better to fix this overall for general concert safety? I think we figure out the problem, and make it better for people to have better live experiences.
Live Nation reportedly agreed to end the concert early after the Houston PD and the fire department declared it a mass casualty event, but the concert continued for another 40 minutes. Was there ever any communication to you on stage that you should end this?
Well, yeah, I mean, they just told me right after, the guests get off stage, we're going to end the show, and that's what we did. Other than that, there was no other communication.
What's going to come out as part of these lawsuits are any and all communications that were recorded or just testimony, right? So if any single person, security, medical, someone on the, mixing board in the front of the house, if anyone communicated and testified that they let him know, then this is going to be used against him because he said, no, they're like, yeah, once the guest is done and gets off the stage, we'll be done with the show. That's what he said. He wasn't told anything.
So after the guest, what you mean?
Yeah, after the guest comes out,
okay,
we're gonna end the show. But it wasn't communication on why. It was just, that's what came through my ears.
Oh, so they didn't say stop now?
No.
Got you.
No.
Wow. Do you feel like people are forcing more responsibility on you because you are the front man, because it was Astroworld?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm the face of the festival. I'm an artist. So yeah, the media is, they want to, put it on me. But at the end of the day, it's like, I don't think it's more so about that. I think it's more so about stepping up to figure out what the problem is. And I could take that. Mm-hmm. I could take, stepping up to figure out what the problem is. I could take stepping into figuring out the solution that never happened again. Because that's what I generally want to do in general, even just for my community, Mm-hmm. The whole idea for why I brought this festival to the city was to, show that Houston is something different. And show that there's all different types of lives, there's all different type of energy. And just bring that morale to the city, and just bring that energy to the city. So I definitely want to, step in to figure out, how can we fix this in the future? What can we do to, change these things,
Yeah, so he says, I feel like I'm being used as a scapegoat. Again, he doesn't seem to feel like he has any kind of responsibility. And, one of the first videos that we put up, we go, look, they're alleging you have a policy in place and the artist is not supposed to be the one stopping the show. Can you think of any other circumstance where an artist would just stop the show? I don't know, because a fan was injured. That's number one that comes to mind. But number two, maybe the artist is scared for their own life. They see something in the audience and they, for whatever reason, they decide to stop the show. You don't think someone at Travis Scott's level will just do what he wants if he decides to? So I have a real hard time with the whole, I don't have any responsibility here and they're just using me as the scapegoat because that's just what the press does. No, we're not saying that all the failures with this festival are on his shoulders to a degree, because of course there are other companies and other individuals that were a part of this. That is why there are a lot of defendants that have been named. We're saying, what was your role in this entire tragedy and what could you have done to maybe prevent further loss of life, especially when there had already been fatalities 40 minutes before you stopped the show?
Do you feel like you did everything you possibly could to help in that situation?
Yes. Yes, anything I physically can, for sure, yes. And it just, if knowing, you know, what's going on, you know, you would just wish, you know, how, if you, you know, could have done something better, or, you know, but standing there, 1000%.
You know, we know that the families of the people who passed are definitely watching this right now. And you know, there's nothing you could say to heal the trauma these families who lost loved ones are going through. But being that you know they're watching, what would you say to them directly?
I'll say to them that I'm always here, and that, you know, I'm in this with you guys, and I love you, you know, and I'll always, you know, be there to help you guys heal through this. And I understand that they're going through, you know.
I don't think he does. I'm sorry. I don't think he understands. Little Ezra, little 9-year-old Ezra, whose family just put him in the ground a couple weeks ago. Watching this interview, hearing Travis Scott say, I had zero responsibility in this, but I feel ya.
You know, they're grieving right now, and they're finding understanding right now. And, you know, it's not just like a right now thing, it's a for everything. Mm-hmm. And these people that came to the show, they are my family. And I've always had that connection to the people I feel like that listen to the music or came to my shows. And that's why I really, you know, it's really hard on me even just, you know, to even like, you know, man, even, because, you know, they end up, they lost their loved ones, you know? Mm-hmm. So it you know, it's tough. And
is this forced emotion? I mean, look, I've seen there are other YouTube channels that will do, you know, body analysis, right? These guys who professionally do this for a living, and they've done this for Travis Scott in that first video that he did post. And so I'm watching things, you know, he's rubbing his knees, he's rubbing his legs. And what we do when we interview, right, or depose witnesses, or we have someone on the stand, we're watching body language very clearly. And I'm watching how many times he's swiveling in his chair, right, these signs of nervousness. And, you know, this could be genuine emotion, but I'm wondering how much of it is genuine.
And, you know, I just want to always just be there for them, and just always just be able to just know that I'm going to fix this for the future people, you know, and fix this solution, and fix this problem. I mean, you know, and find a solution to making sure that this doesn't happen in the future, and definitely be a #1 voice for this, you know. Because that, you know, I feel like that's like one of the, what we got to figure out. Because other than that, it's like, you know, the show goes on tomorrow, or, you know, something goes, how does this get fixed?
This could happen again. It's happened before.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're a father, you know, God forbid when your kids are of age, if they're in a situation like this, you know, I want you to put yourself in those parents' shoes right now. What would you want to see come of this situation if you...
I want to see people put their heads together. I want to see people really figure this out, not take this lightly, you know?
If I was a parent, I would want to see those responsible take responsibility.
And really act on it. And that's, you know, that's one of the main things that's important. I feel like they gotta just act on it. It can't just be like something that happens and it just roll over. Mm-hmm. It gotta be something that's taken serious and addressed seriously. And things formed around it, time and a lot of time and a lot of, you know, thinking power spent on this, you know, and really fixing, you know, whatever system it is that needs to be fixed, you know.
From the lawsuits to the media coverage, do you feel like you're personally under attack?
I mean, yeah, you see a name in it and shit, and it's like, but, you know, at the end of the day, you step in these, you step and you want to do a festival, and when you want to do things and you want to build up, it comes with certain things, right? So I think it's all about how you respond to it, and I think it's all about how you react, right? So I could feel that way, but I think more so about, it's more about how I feel about the response that I care about more so, which is, actually, trying to step in and, really step up to really fixing what's happening. And
Well, I mean, Travis Scott is saying the key here, the important thing here is the response and stepping up. Okay, so we're 23 minutes now into this interview, and I still have not heard him say anything substantive that can really answer these questions about what had been happening. I mean, even if he said, hand to God, I had no idea what was happening. I thought everything was okay. I couldn't hear people yelling for help, and no one said anything to me. And I feel like that was a total failure because of this. Because I expect that my team communicates with me and lets me know what's happening with my fans who I care and I love, and they're my family, and I want to hold them. And I can't believe that no one told me. Had someone told me this is what I would have done in the middle of the show, I would have loved to have heard anything like that 23 minutes into his interview.
And really step up for the safety of concert goers or people in just live spaces, period.
I wonder, is there a way to even prepare for this? Because nobody, like you said, when you're doing the planning for a show like this, nobody is planning for this to happen. So how do you even prepare for something like this to happen?
I don't know. And I feel like when it comes out a little bit more how this could have happened, I feel like that's how we can kind of attack that. But even I was thinking in ways like tech solutions. People come into these festivals with these bands that only scan you in, right? You have all type of tech now that can track your heart, can track your, oxygen levels, can track if you're gonna be sick. You can put things now if you're gonna be, get lost. There's all type of ways now. I feel like that can be the band that only gets you access to entry or to a food line or to food trucks can now be solvable to helping save lives, can now be more of a response to people that are now on site and on ground. I feel like that could be a way, or, even just figuring out what the exact solution, what the exact problem of it was, and dialing more into that. I think you can I feel like there is a way. I just think it needs to be time spent on figuring that out.
Have you been able to have any personal conversations with any of the families who lost loved ones?
I was able to, but I just want to respect that, the privacy of the conversation, and I'm thankful for them for even allowing me to have the conversation. So yeah.
How did you feel when some of the families rejected your offer to pay for the funerals?
All things are understandable, and at a time they're grieving and they're trying to find understanding, and they want answers, and it's not about that. I'm always gonna be here, to want to help them. You know what I'm saying? And it's not gonna I gotta continue to just show up for that. I just wanted to make sure that they knew that I was there for them, and continue to be there for them.
Yeah, so right when this had initially happened, we did immediately hear that Travis Scott was going to pay for the funerals for everyone who had passed. He was going to pay for some therapy through BetterHelp. And so the update, and this is going to be one of a number of things we're going to be updating in the next video that we release on this channel having to do with the Astroworld Festival, but it's that I believe as of shooting this video, every single plaintiff, right? So the families of those who have passed have rejected the offer to pay for the funerals. And they do this more than likely because I'm sure in one sense, the families just don't even want anything to do with Travis Scott or his money. But number two, and more likely because the attorneys are advising them not to take the money. And it's because even though what's being told to them is that the money is coming with no strings attached, which sometimes can be used to argue in courts that, well, they accepted this money this was their settlement. This was their settlement payment for the damage that was caused. So they're saying, no, it's not for that reason. We just really want to help the families. Their lawyers are probably saying, don't do that at all. Don't take any money. Just let's deal with this in court and have a final judgment.
I think that's just more so what it's about for that. Yeah.
Some people say your music played a role in this. Like I've seen them, cite lyrics, that encourage this kind of behavior. I've seen them say your music is demonic and this was a satanic ritual. You think your music is to blame?
I mean, no. I'm a man of God. So that's the first thing first. And, so it's just, yeah, that's that. And, your music is just like self-expression, you know what I'm saying? And at these shows, I feel like people kind of like look at things, and if you've been to a Travis show, it's been different layers of shows, I think people are just, misconceptions and taking things they're seeing and, all type of things, and I've took pride in trying to, grow from where I was when I first recorded music to now where I'm going in music. So yeah, I just think people gotta, and that's one thing with me is just people gotta kind of, experience it sometimes. And I think that's what it was. People were kind of like, even before, people were hearing about it, they come and experience it and taking away their own thing. And it's always gonna be an outside opinion. But, for the ones that, really believe in me and, understand what I'm about and what I'm doing, no, that's not what I'm, preaching. I always preach like love, always preach understanding, always preach, take care of your loved ones, love each other, you know what I'm saying? Get out your ideas, never let yourselves be stopped,
Look, I feel like that might have been an instance that the answer maybe had been kind of tailored or discussed with his attorney ahead of time, because I feel like he should just take ownership of his art. Legal liability and what he creates as an artist typically are separate things, but the question was, do you feel like your words, right, the energy in your music maybe, is it contributing to kind of the mindset of your fans? And I think, if he has some kind of imagery that he likes to present, some kind of lyrical content, even if it is violent, even if it is, let's say, politically charged, or if it is spiritual or about good and evil. I mean, these are themes that we've seen come up as people are thinking, maybe this was planned and that there's something demonic going on here. So setting that aside, I think if he just took ownership of his art and he says, look, what I promote is love and caring and, to his own words, that's okay. But I think it's also okay for him to take ownership of his art and to say, as an artist, I like to create. And as a man of God, whatever that God is, I want to just kind of, look at good and evil. And so these are things that might appear in my music. But of course, I wouldn't want my fans to be hurt. Of course, I wouldn't want them to come to my show and, die. So, I think he definitely sidestepped that question by just saying, no, that's not what I'm about at all. That's probably not the case, in especially the lyrics of his music.
Love one another and step into that,
I think that's a part of it, but the music does encourage people to be violent at these shows. I mean, that's what the rage is about.
Most of the music is me sometimes talking about what I see at the shows. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If I'm talking about the shows, and so that's just, the energy, you know what I'm saying? But the energy isn't to come and start, being ultra violent and just being violent and hurting each other. That's not what it's about.
So it's more so supposed to be entertainment.
Yeah, everything is, and it's about what you experience at the shows and what you see,
Will this change the content of your music moving forward, you think?
What happened here wasn't off Travis Scott music. Mm-hmm. That wasn't, oh, now you need to like switch up. No, I've made all different type of music in the first place, I've never was just like one lane or one genre of anything in the first place. So I just think it's all about experiences, and I feel like, it could be music to come out of it. Lyricism, just emotion. Music is emotion. Mm-hmm. you know, and music is healing. And, you know, you can just find healing and find emotion, you know, in that, you know, and
Well, not all music is healing, right? I agree with him as far as music is emotion. I think that's a good point. So it's a moment of expression, and he's expressed himself in many kind of ways. I feel like Charlamagne kind of called him on it a second ago, and he's like, well, your lyrics literally are kind of telling them to come rage at your shows. Wouldn't you agree? And again, he sidestepped it. Again, I think it would probably be okay if he said, for example, if he was like a heavy metal, you know, or in a heavy metal band, and he, you know, to the extent people come and mosh at the show and they might get hurt, there's a certain culture, there's a certain energy that's promoted by an artist, including like Travis Scott. And so that's basically the point of Charlamagne's question, right? The culture of the shows that you put on, plus the kind of vibe of your music, don't you think that maybe that kind of contributes? And I feel like the very lawyer-tailored answer that we're getting here is no, of course not. That would never happen.
just more progressive. You know, everything I'm trying to do is just more progressive.
You said you're a man of God, and when I even said that, you know, they say your music is satanic, I saw the face that you made. Where do you think that even comes from? Travis Scott is satanic, Travis Scott is
I just think it's just things people collect. You know, people look at the internet and they just collect, and they look at things and they look at visuals, and, you know, we have all these theorists and people just thinking they're looking at visuals and don't understand, you know, just the idea of like what art may be or what you're trying to do. You know, they're just making up your own message, especially when you're not out there like yelling the message all the time. You know, it's just, yeah.
And when they say this is a community event, Astroworld.
Yeah, it's a,
So they say a community event is a satanic ritual. How does that
yeah, that's like,
feel?
it's crazy, because, you know, it's like, I do this for people to have a good time. You know, we have rides, we have games, you know, it's things for people to get off creative experiences. It's not, you know, the show is at the end of the day, you know, it's like, you know, and that show is just something based on what's, you know, just things, you know, it's not like, what? Like, why would we wake up one day and just trying to, that's just evil. It's not what we're a part of. We're not trying to be a part of that. We're trying to be a part of joy. We're trying to be a part of light. We're trying to be a part of full-blown happiness, love, you know, understanding, people taking care of each other, you know, community, people to leave from these experiences and want to go out and do good. That's literally what we want. You know, we want to show them these things, you know. We put everything into the, you know, this is, you know, this festival, you know, this is our third year, you know, so we try to put, you know, every year we put everything into the festival so people can enjoy it. You know, it's not about just come perform. Not that, you know, it's things for them to do all day. And different artists for them to experience too.
Have the trauma of this tragedy impacted your desire to perform in the future?
I've always seen performances of art of healing for me. That's why I've always been so into it. You know, I don't know if you like, you know, looked at like some of the growth from where I've tried to take performance. I've always tried to, I feel like it's the art of healing. I feel like it's a moment where people have a mutual understanding. You know, and I feel like the first things first, before anything, is that we address, you know, a lot of safety concerns. I think the first things first is that, because not even just for me, you don't want other, you know, artists to have to go and take a part of that trauma, take a part of that experience, take a part of that, you know, that fear. You don't want concert goers to still be a part of that fear. You want them to feel safe. You know what I'm saying? So I think that's just the first things first. And I think
I'm kind of getting the impression that he's almost laying the groundwork for when he announces that he's going to be performing again. Now, some people might say, you know, given what happened, you should go into a hole and not perform. We shouldn't hear from you for a year. Go deal with your lawsuits. But what he's saying is, well, before I kind of get back to it, we're going to be addressing these safety concerns. We're going to make sure the fans stay safe. So the important part there just being he's already thinking about performing again.
once we take major steps into moving in that direction, you know, I feel like, you know, it could be cool for people to practice that healing again, you know, and understand that. I don't think people should run away from it and shy away from it. I think, you know, it's a form of healing, you know?
You know, no matter what you do at any of your shows in the future, regardless of how much security, how much safety you put in place, you cannot control human behavior.
Yeah.
You can't control 40, 50,000 people doing whatever it is that they do. Does that scare you?
I mean, yeah, but you know, you also put trust in the fans too, to, you know, just have a good time. You know, you just reinstill that, and you know, you continue to practice. You know, when you're on stage, to just remind them. You know, and even when they're there, to just constantly have messages to remind them, like, yo, look, you're here to have a good time. We're not here if you see somebody, you know, help another. You know, I think.
Okay. So for the first time in this interview, he finally said, you know, if you see someone, help another. Okay. I mean, that's great, but he's talking about what the plan should be moving forward. Why was that not something that was so innately ingrained in him as a professional live performer?
It's just continue to reinstill that message. I think help that mindset.
Yeah, so Astroworld was one of, you know, several ways you gave back to Houston. Do you think you've, you know, lost that privilege to do that?
To be honest, I haven't really like thought about that, because I've just been thinking about just community healing, and you know, the family's healing, and you know, all those things kind of building back up.
That could take forever though. That, you know, I don't know if you ever truly heal.
Yeah.
From these type of situations.
Yeah. And you know, but you know, through these things, you know, like I say, music is part of healing. And at the end of the day, I just don't think, you know, a Travis Scott show or, you know, an Astroworld show, you know, wasn't the bottom line factor of what happened here, you know? And I think we just got to figure out what that was, what happened. But, you know, having a Travis Scott show, you know, we've done shows, you know, all over. That wasn't the, you know, what happened here, you know, something that happened here, you know? And that's why we want to fix it, because it can happen anywhere. You know what I'm saying? And I think once we get further along in that, I think, you know, it'd be a little bit more receptive, I feel.
Just you as an individual, when you perform again, what precautions will you take moving forward? Just you, just based off what you can personally control. What precautions would you take moving forward?
I'll do the same thing I've, you know, been doing, just double, you know, making sure everybody is on post, and you know, I'll do the, you know, double down on just making sure that everyone is locked in. Everyone is aware, everyone is on response, everybody is on, you know, on it, you know?
So in this instance, he's kind of showing now himself to be this businessman, right? So when it comes to my shows and when I perform again, when I perform again, I'm going to make sure everything is on lockdown and all the teams are right in place. Okay. So you're saying you've never done that before? You're saying that someone who, you know, and again, my law office represents festival organizers. Okay. So, you know, he is a festival organizer. Just because he happens to be one of the performer shouldn't be this little white flag of, you know, I'm the innocent bystander and I'm just this poor little artist. But even right here, he goes, no, I'm going to make sure everything is on lockdown and we, everyone has their policies in place and we're going to act if a situation comes up. Okay, great that you seem to know that now. You knew that before and you didn't do it. And his actual statement in response to this question was, I'm just going to keep doing what I do. That's what he said. Well, apparently what you did last time didn't work. So that's probably not the best way to move forward.
You know what I'm saying? And look out. Try to, you know, if you felt like it wasn't there more, push for it to be more. Push the call and response more with the fans.
Like, what do you mean? Like, are y'all okay?
Or, you know, or like, you know, try to have some sort of call and response with the fans while still being smooth in the performance. Because at the end of the day, it's still performance art. You know what I'm saying? And that's why the whole idea about this is you want to make sure that it's all these factors are done before we even go into these things, you know? Because you want to just, when you go in, you want to have the mindset that, okay, people are going to be okay. We can have a good show. If anything's going down, people are going to be right there to be the first one to get to them, you know? And if there's going to be any communication, it's, you know, communication, but, you know, I think, yeah.
When you did.
Back to kind of my body language note earlier, I have been noticing, you know, earlier he kind of calmed down, he stopped swiveling. He seems when he gets a little bit nervous or uncomfortable, he's rubbing his legs a lot, he's swiveling in the chair, and then just then he was adjusting himself in the chair, and I feel like he's just very uncomfortable because he doesn't actually know what to say in response to, what are you actually going to do? Right? Because maybe one feasible option could be I'm going to have a dedicated person who's on stage. I can't necessarily have everyone talking in my in-ears and, all that. I got to focus. I got to perform. But I'm going to have someone on stage who's going to be in communication with medical and security and crowd control, and they're going to be communicating with me if something. I mean, give us something. But you saw right there, he seemed to be incredibly uncomfortable, and he didn't really say anything. He just said, we're going to do the call response better with the crowd. Apparently that didn't work this time. I don't know why you think it would work again.
You stopped the show. How did you see that one person?
I mean, he was right there. You had you had people like just spread it out, And so I'm looking, I'm like, oh. So I just called down and, the medics just came in, responded, got him out,
That's the only one you saw that?
Yeah, that's the only one I saw. And then, when I seen the lights in the back, I just double checked, make sure everyone was okay. I got a response that everyone was okay. Yeah.
How normal is that to see ambulances and everything else at these festivals?
Well, it was lights, so and ambulances don't really have like red and blue lights,
So you thought it was?
I don't. Yeah, you don't know. You just looking at his lights. That's why I asked. I'm just like, yo, is it an ambulance? It's like, what's going on? You don't know if it's like somebody got some lights up there, doing some turn. You don't know, but.
Now, having actually seen the footage and what it looks like from the stage, what Travis Scott actually saw as it relates to that ambulance as it was coming through the audience, it's hard for me to just be like, we think that that's anything other than an emergency responder, whether it was police or an ambulance, but I will say at least, when we saw the expression on his face, he looked confused at that moment. So a part of our analysis when the footage was first coming out and we're looking at this thing, we're just saying, even if you weren't sure what was happening, there were people that came on stage, what was said, why didn't you get that clarification? Why didn't you communicate with, let's say, medical? And they would have told you at that point there had been fatalities. But what he decided to do instead in that moment is he kept the show going. And in fact, the next song that he played was a very energetic song where he told everyone it was time to rage.
I want to make this motherfucking ground shake, goddammit. Whoa.
I didn't get a response. So, you got a response from the fans. I asked everyone to put a hand up. And then, didn't get a response from anything else. So just carried on.
Does it make you feel judged when you see videos, circulating of other artists stopping their shows, like to check on fans since Astroworld? Because it's almost like the insinuation from other artists is that, like, you didn't do enough, so we don't want to be like Travis.
I take it as, they're just taking extra precautions, because it might not have been something that, was running through their mind at time before, and they're just taking extra precautions to, make sure they don't run through the same problems. And I can commend them for that. I've always done the same thing, in my prior shows and at this show. So I feel them. I just think it's been a little bit more, people are more capturing it now, like because of what's going on. I think that's just how the media works.
Well, no, I think what Charlamagne's referring to is what's resurfacing are instances of bands and other artists of what they did in similar situations. When a fan had passed out, when there was something happening, and the fact that these artists just simply stopped the show. Now, it's not to say we've canceled the show, we're not going on any further. No, it just goes, hey guys, let's take a breather. Everyone help each other up on your feet. Okay, we're cool. Let's go. And just comparing to the fact that Travis didn't do that. He stopped the show a couple of times, but he never actually communicated with the audience to help try to resolve whatever was happening, even if he wasn't sure, even if he doesn't know what ambulance lights look like, apparently, to still just say, hey, let's take a breather for a second.
Do you feel like your team right now is allowing you to do everything that you possibly could do?
And as far as what?
Just as far as like anything regards to the situation, speaking out.
Well,
reaching out to families, whatever.
Well, yeah, it's a lot of legal into it, but at the end of the day, I'm human, so I want to do so much to try to like help and heal, and you want to give time for people to heal, and you want to give time, but I want to be able to like go and start taking these steps to, you know, addressing these, you know, these problems and, you know, getting to the solutions, you know, addressing the solutions and addressing ways to fix these things from happening in the future. Like, and I think that's the main thing. And I've always took pride in trying to lead things and go and attack things and, you know, be the first to jump out and go do it, you know? So I'm more than, you know, happy enough to go.
But
I'm not sure that sentiment, which I can certainly appreciate, but I'm not sure that sentiment is reflected in his legal positioning. So what I mean, and we'll cover this in the next video that we post on this channel. Like I said, we'll do all the updates, but there's another update having to do with the fact that his attorney filed a motion to dismiss him from 11 of the lawsuits. And so, you know, basically it just says we want to get Travis Scott out of the case. Now, legally, he's entitled to file anything to defend himself, to try to not have to pay $10 billion. I get that. But if you're going to say, I want to be a leader and I want to show people that I care about my fans and I want to do everything in my power to make this right, you going and taking obviously these legal positions to get out of the cases, does that match up?
But then there's the person Travis Scott, but then there's the business of Travis Scott. So I'm sure there's a lot of people around you trying to protect the business.
Yeah.
So for you personally, like, you know, how much do you want to protect the business as well?
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, like, people have to understand these businesses aren't built because, you know, you Charlamagne and I'm Travis. So it's like, I've always cared about, you know, the fans. I don't give a, you know, it's about them. You know, so it's like, obviously it's like business and this, but I've always been the one that's like pushed back on vocally, like, yo, you know, we gotta, you know, this is about, you know, the fans, and, you know, the team has always felt the same way. And so, and anytime I've ever done anything corporately, that's just how I've always been. It's just like, yo, we wanna go do things to make sure that the people that are experiencing this product is having the best experience. It's not about, you know, what we could do, like the numbers, like, you know, that's not what we chase here. We chase for people to have the best experience. You know, we want people to enjoy themselves. We want people to walk away with like just ideas, like, wow, this is like, you know.
Well, I guess even just then, right? So he's talking about when he has these meetings with the big corporations and he's doing these deals and he goes, we're strategizing. We want them to have the best experience. It's not about money. That's basically what he's saying. It's about the fans, the consumers. Okay, so, but you're saying you do that for your products that you sell? You don't do that for your shows? You didn't sit down and say, we want to make sure everyone is safe and we have to have best experience. No, what he said earlier is, I leave that stuff to the professionals.
They say that there's no permanent friends or enemies in business. So, you know, if anybody decides to back away from Travis Scott on a corporate level, do you care?
No. But I've never jumped into things with people that didn't know me. So everyone I surrounded myself with, you know, it's always been, you know, a backbone and, you know, supportive to anything I want to do to help fix anything that could be a good cause, you know. So, you know, I'm thankful for that, you know.
If the families of the victims never forgive you, will you ever be able to forgive yourself? Can you live with that?
Nah, it's tough. You know, it's real tough. Because I want them to really know that my intentions, you know, wasn't to harm their family at all. It's for them to come to have a good experience. You know, and like, you know.
I'm believing this. I believe that he didn't mean to harm anyone. This goes back to the body language. He's sitting there very calmly. I believe he's saying something very truthful right now. But having good intentions and then doing what he did or not doing what he did are two different things.
I've always feel like I have a connection with my fans, you know, through the music. I feel like when they come to see me, it's not just like, oh, they come in it's like a connection. And, you know, sometimes not knowing, you know, people not understanding like artists and where we come from, it could be a disconnect. And, you know, I would love to, you know, instead of understanding and, you know, for them to truly know where my heart's from, you know, it didn't come for me to harm. And wasn't about a show to keep, you know, at all. You know, it's about for them to have, you know, a very good time. And it's just tragic that it didn't turn out that way, you know.
Do you feel like you're being villainized?
I mean, I feel like it comes with being in the seat, you know? And I feel like they pointing the finger at me because it's my festival, or they wanna, you know, I am who I am, you know? And it maybe not a lot of like understanding about like what's going on, but you know, like I said before, I feel like I can kind of like take that in a sense. Because my whole career, I feel like people have been trying to do that. And I feel like I've shown through actions that that's not my character. That's not, you know, that's not who I am. I'm shining through positive, you know? And I feel like, you know, with understanding and with everything, I feel like people understand that what my heart wasn't there to be the villain, you know? I was there to be like a hometown hero.
You know, the day before Astroworld, there's footage of you discussing the importance of giving back to your community and how much it means to you to be able to do that. Do you think people have forgotten, you know, your heart in all this and what Astroworld was truly about?
You know, I think people, you know, are grieving, and it can get, you know, misplaced with, you know, who cares about that, what's going on right now. But, you know, like I said, I just want to continue to, you know, stay on those stepping blocks and continue to doing the charity I've been doing, and continue to doing the community work I've been doing for Houston, you know. I was doing those things before, not looking for people to pat me on the back for them, you know. I was just doing them simply to make a change. And so you wouldn't be surprised if people don't, you know, pay attention to some of those things throughout whenever you are doing them. But that's not what you're doing for, really. So I feel like at the end of the day, you continue to do those things, regardless.
Well, and that's all fine. I hope he does charitable work. That's great. I feel like he's speaking very much in his feelings right now, as far as, you know, he wants to do good, and that's okay. But going back to these complaints that are being filed against him and the other festival organizers and defendants, you know, has to do with negligence. Did you have a duty to those who were attending the festival? The answer is yes, across the board, and especially for Travis Scott. What was his duty? Now, we heard just a few moments ago he had said, "This is my festival," right? So very taking ownership. This is my festival. So I go back to, you know, think of it this way, right? So John, this other guy, John is someone who puts together this festival, and there's 50,000 people that came to it. 10 people died. John saying, you know what, I put it together, but I just hire a bunch of people to kind of, you know, coordinate medical and security and all this stuff. I have nothing to do with it. They're the professionals. I don't know. I shouldn't be on the hook. It's the same thing here. And in this instance, Travis just said, yeah, it is my festival. So, you know, for him to say basically he didn't have a duty of care to his fans definitely is not something I wish I was hearing right now.
You know?
Do you think you'll ever be able to recover from this emotionally?
You know, my grandmother, my dad, my mom, they've always told me to, you know, put your faith in God and hide behind his wing. And at the end of the day, I think you gotta, I've always told myself, you know, things are gonna get, it's hard, you know, things can be feeling amazing sometimes and things can get real hard, you know, and I think how you respond to things and where you channel your emotions is very important, you know, especially at a time like this. And I gave my, you know, it was hard for me to really, because it is the first time anything like this. I've even seen anything like this, heard of it, and it be happening, you know, to this whole community, you know, it just, you know, you kind of just, you want to be able to channel that emotion to just respond, and you got to be strong, man. stepping in and doing the things for the community doesn't come with being, too weak. You got to be able to, step through these things and show people that you really care. This wasn't just to get to the point to do this, but it was really to create active change,
Mm-hmm.
And I think, these are, it's these moments right now where you gotta really show, where your heart is in this thing, and I think, that's what I've always, wanted to do, and, I wanna just continue to do that.
I'm glad you mentioned your family, because that was one of my last questions. Like, how important has family been in this situation?
It's been important. All my family was there too. So it's been important. But to be able to have them and bounce back, ideas, and them grieve with, for those families as well. Pray for those families as well. Continue to, them also being a helping hand as well, which gives me more hands to help, I feel like, which is more important. And, them always having my back to support the idea of want to create this change, I think, at least gives me more confidence that, I'm not in this alone, you know what I'm saying? To help fix this, for the families, for the community.
Yeah, I mean, so at this point, he's obviously speaking just very generally about, I think, bringing people together, and he wants healing, and he wants to give back, and that's all nice. But kind of going back to the initial comment that I had at the very beginning of the video, and I go, as we're watching this, to keep in mind, kind of, is this something that was likely, discussed with his attorney ahead of time? Did he just go and do this interview with Charlamagne? Probably not. And the reason I say that, and the reason I think this is probably more of a coordinated thing that was done through, advice of counsel, is because of the way he's answering. And if this is really how he feels, I mean, that's a different conversation. But, he keeps talking about, I'm going to be kind of the hero in this story, and I'm going to help with the investigation. We're going to figure out ways to prevent this from ever happening again, and all of these answers that are just so kind of generically, I'm going to do whatever I can, but I don't really know what happened still. And maybe not only were the questions prepped, he probably knew what they were going to be. Maybe the edit of this interview was actually sent to the attorney. Maybe they had a contract so they could edit out stuff if he misspoke. I mean, I'm not getting a real sense that he keeps saying, I want to step up for my fans and for these families. How are you stepping up? Saying there needs to be more investigation. Well, it's already happening. There are authorities for that. Filing motion to dismiss, not sure if that's stepping up. Offering to maybe pay for a couple of funerals, that's nice, but I don't think that's really going to cut it, because there were more people harmed than just the families of those lives that were lost. And, now for a couple of minutes, he's just been kind of generally talking about wanting to bring people together in community.
As a superstar, it's weird, right? Because these same outlets that report on this tragedy, when something like the W cover leaks, then now they want to get back to your relationship. And whether you and, Kylie are together or not. Is that not strange to you?
I mean, yeah. So I don't really only do magazines I like,
Mm-hmm.
But, a magazine gonna try to figure out what the fuck they want to figure out, I've never did anything for a relationship for, anybody to try to figure out, put a label on what they want to put it on.
Mm-hmm.
We know what our relationship is, and, so I just stand strong on it.
So I guess my final question, man, who does Travis Scott ultimately, I guess, think is responsible for this tragedy?
It's crazy because something tragic happened here, and what I've just been trying to, get to the bottom of is just what happened here, how it happened here. And I think the families are owed, that. I feel like, the community is owed that. I feel like we're owed that to just know what happened here.
Is that all the family is owed? To know what happened? If I lost my son Ezra, 9 years old, as a parent, I just want to know what happened. I think it's pretty clear what happened. And, I'll again, step back a second. And I've said this before. There are a number of people and companies that were involved in this. I mean, we talked about the fact that Apple was named as a defendant, and we look at the way that the stage had been set up to accommodate the cameras and the team that were there live streaming, because live streaming and what, was being generated in revenue from just the live streaming portion, very profitable, but they caged in these kids and the fans that were at this event. And so by no means am I saying that all the responsibility is with Travis Scott, but, the direct question of who's ultimately responsible here. And he goes, we'll get to the bottom of this and we'll investigate to see what happened.
And, I don't want to just speak too soon. I just want to figure out, what happened,
Mm-hmm.
But, we, like I said, as artists, we just leave this up, to professionals to make sure that we, that fans are having a good time, people are protected and can, leave and have the best experience ever,
They're going to pick this interview apart. So is there anything you want to say, to your fans, to the family of people who lost loved ones, before we get out of here?
I mean, I want everyone to just continue praying for the fans. I want people to continue praying for the fans that was lost. Mm-hmm. I want people to continue praying for the families. I want people to continue just reaching out for healing. I want people to continue to just be there for each other. And remember that, that love is just, everything. And with that, we can try to cure everything, and take steps into, healing. And I think the more we try to, continue to let people.
Yeah, not to get them off, but just, healing and love. And, again, from the legal standpoint, that is not what's going to make these families whole. There were a lot more people that were injured other than just the families. We're just hyper-focusing because they actually lost children, daughters, sons at this event. And I gotta tell you, I'm pretty disappointed for what Travis Scott said and didn't say. I think that if he wanted to kind of come out as a hero here and to say, I'm gonna do everything I can for my fans and their families, give us something a little more substantive. But he didn't actually have any ideas. He didn't actually have a plan, even when challenged with the, what are you going to do on the next show? And he said, I'll do the same. But, I'm going to make sure that the professionals double down, everyone's locked in. But that displaces, and this constant reiteration of it was the professionals' failure and not mine. I had no responsibility. I did everything in my power. I couldn't have stopped the show. Or I guess, actually, he did stop the show, right? Or I couldn't have stopped the show for longer to give the ambulance, if that's what it was, he's not sure, time to retrieve these people. And to even say, hey, I need an answer to the person or two people who had run on stage to talk to him when that ambulance was going through the audience, and to say, I need to know what's happening. Go get an answer. You better believe that his support staff are going to go do what Travis Scott says. So the fact that this just seemed really like these canned answers felt very strategic in that, he's knowing that's going to get torn apart. Obviously, we went through and, this is what a jury may ultimately end up watching. They probably will watch it, one way or another, and it all matters. And so that's why, sometimes with defendants, attorneys will say, don't say anything, right? Don't, give someone an opportunity to misinterpret what you're saying. But, he did put himself out there. He did a 50-minute interview. And during those 50 minutes, he said, I feel so bad I think that's what he said, but he just said, I want these families to know how much I care, but he couldn't name one thing that he is actually going to do. And actually, he did mention something. He said he's going to come up with some techie little watch, and I bet at maybe another Astroworld festival or another show that he does, maybe he'll have some branded watch that he's selling to keep his fans protected. All right, guys. So as promised, we have a number of other updates that we're going to be bringing to you on our normally scheduled podcast. So make sure you subscribe, turn on those bell notifications so you get notified when that video goes up, and I'll see you on the next one. I'm top music attorney, Miss Krystle. Bye.